Okay, so we are now live. I am so excited. Hey, everyone. So we'll give people a few minutes to join in. As people join in, I just want to welcome you. This is Dr. Tar Tuesdays. I am Dr. Tar, and I'm so excited about our conversation tonight. Joining me is the great, magnificent, phenomenal Sister Mothyna. As people come in, I just want to say that you all are in for a treat. If you happen to catch us on the replay, please feel free to, as you watch this live, I know it's going to be impactful, to list any comments, thoughts, or feedback that you have, because we want this to be shared. We want this to be a part of the Dr. Tara community. And so I'm just excited for the opportunity to have Sister Mothyna on here. So I just want to start by welcoming you, Mothyna. Thank you so much. I know that you are a very busy woman, and so I'm just thrilled to have you on here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm more busy than you are. So I am so grateful for the opportunity to spend time with you, to spend time with those connected to you and your community, because they're obviously amazing human beings, because hello, Dr. Tara's community. So thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So I want to jump right into it. So whenever I have guests on, I always try to honor their area of expertise. And so I know for you, you are all about healing. And I want to just dive in. So talking about the notion of healing is not new to you, of course. For those of us who are those people who may not have heard of you or heard you speak or been to any of your conferences, workshops, webinars, can you give us some information, education about you and your work and why this is important to you?
Absolutely. One of the things I think is critical for those listening is that you never know. Like the day before your life changes is just like any other day. You do all the same things. You don't have any idea what tomorrow is going to bring. Well, the day my life changed was at Morgan State University. Shout out Bears, go, go, go. And and I remember walking down the streets. I'm walking from those who are from the Maryland area. You'll know when I say walking down, from Rock Raven to Hillen, going to campus, and I had this group of middle schoolers around me. And I'll never forget because I literally was wearing, don't judge, but I had on blue jeans with a pink Playboy bunny, on the butt, my pink FUBU sneakers, okay, and a pink head wrap, walking to campus, and all these middle schools, probably about 15 or 20 middle schools around me. And one of my very good friends, who's actually from Philly, shout out to Nadira Suleiman. And we were walking to campus, and I had this moment. This moment when I realized that this is what I've been meant to do, that I am going to work. And I even corrected it in my head. I was like, I'm going to work with girls and I'm going to work with women. I was 17 years old and I had absolutely no idea what that meant for the next phase of my life. However, I reflect back, years later on that moment. And I think about all the other little moments that led into that moment. And so my commitment to healing comes not just from the woman who looks at me in the mirror, but rather from my mom, from my sisters, from my grandmother, my aunts, that once one woman literally is living not just her best life, which is, popular now, but living and being the best her, standing in true authenticity, we literally will change the world. So I was reading a book and saw the phrase, heal a woman, heal a nation. And I was like, that's it. That is it right there. That if we can connect to that, we can literally transform the world one woman at a time and everyone else she touches. So that began my journey in this concept of healing and understanding and unpacking what that was. And I could say it to you that way now, but I couldn't say it that way, 16 plus years ago when the thoughts began to germinate and the process began for me. So that's where my journey began and this commitment to healing. And so we did our first event in 2004 at Morgan State University. Yes. And that began the journey of Heal a Woman to Heal a Nation.
That's awesome. And I mean, it has grown. It has grown. I know you all have done an international conference. We'll talk more about a conference coming up. I'm just going to September 13th in a little bit, but just giving us a framework and background of why this is so important and why this is so necessary. Listening to you talk, saying, okay, well, looking at these girls who are looking at you, understanding your inspiration comes from your family lineage. One of the things that made me think about is this notion that that gets passed down often from mother to daughter, that healing and self-care is selfish, or you are good, or our worth is in taking care of everyone else, or our worth, or no, or our loyalty is in keeping secrets, right? To protect this thing or this thing. And so,
Yes.
yeah. And so how do you help, or how do people start to reclaim, well, not even reclaim, but rewrite or unlearn and relearn their own narrative around healing for themselves?
One of the more powerful aspects that I think when I reflect back on that conversation and what did I learn from my mom, from my grandmothers, and I was originally born in the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, the best island, of course. I don't worry, everybody else, y'all okay. But seriously, I remember moving from the island, so I moved away from my grandmother's.
Mhm.
And so in New York, where I then spent the rest of my childhood into my teenage years, was my nucleus family, my parents, my siblings, and biologically that was it until I had a cousin who came to live with us. And so biologically that was it.
Mhm.
And that meant though that, especially for all the parents who are listening to this conversation, dial in, lean in right here,
Yes.
right here, because we know how it takes a village to raise a child. And so when you think about that, it was literally these two people with no extended family creating a home for the five of us that lived in the house. That's a lot. That's heavy. And I
Mhm.
distinctly remember watching my mother, that now when I look back on it, I could say she checked out. But I remember a day where I was looking for her. It was like a Saturday morning. I had on like a white colorful a white jumper with colorful flowers on it.
Mhm.
And I remember stepping out of the house and peeking behind the side of the home to the back of the house, to the backyard, and we had a garage back there that you could sit on the step. And I looked around, I was calling her, and I saw my mom sitting on the step.
Mhm.
And I remember walking back there with no shoes on my feet, like, mommy, mommy,
Mhm.
mommy, whatever it was I was asking for. It might have been cereal. I can't remember exactly what I was asking for, but I remember saying, can I have, may I have, can I have, can I have? And she never answered me that day. Tara, my mother sat there, right? And I had to be about 12 years old, maybe.
Mhm.
And she just stared straight ahead. And I remember thinking to myself, what's going on?
Mhm.
She got up, walked right past me, and went into the house. And things kind of resumed almost as normal.
Mhm.
Looking back on that, I recognize that in that moment, I'm pretty sure my mom had checked out. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure the two jobs that she was working, both as almost as a full-time job, the fact that she was in school around that time, she had to be working on her master's degree. So
Wow.
she's in school, she's raising five children. I don't think my cousin lived with us yet at the time. She's raising five children, two of whom were under the age of 4. And life is still happening.
Right.
She's dealing with a relationship, right? So all these things are still happening. So when we think about this, that concept of self-love is not selfish. That's how
Mhm.
Mothyna rephrases it. It's in a book. Because I'm a queen, self-love is not selfish. Okay.
Mhm.
The reason why I recognize that is I think about how powerful would it have been for my mother to have been able to say, I need a day
Mhm.
or an hour.
Right.
And for me to have seen that as an example. I look back today, I became a foster mom last year, and my second child that we took care of was a 4-week-old baby.
Mhm.
And we got her straight from the hospital.
Wow.
And I took 2 months off from work,
Mhm.
and I was stressed out.
Mhm.
Like, almost couldn't function. I was like, I got this. Wait a minute. Hello, I am me.
Right.
You are queen. Here
Right.
you roar.
Right.
And still couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. And I realized I had to learn, and I'm still learning right now, to practice what I preach. How
Mhm.
many of us need to recognize how to practice what we preach and how to get into what are those self-care modems that you have?
Mhm.
Why is it important? And in that experience with baby girl, she probably was about 8 months when we took our first plane ride.
Mhm.
And I've been saying it for years. We've all heard the phrase, right? But I'm sitting on the plane and baby girl's on my lap and she's standing up and yelling da 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 da,
Right.
who
Mhm.
was not quite with us, but da 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 da. And the stewardess walked past, flight
Mhm.
attendant walked past, and then doubled back and looked down at me and said, "Ma'am, if the oxygen mask deployed, we need you to put your own mask on first before helping anyone else." and looked pointedly at the 8-month-old on my lap. And I looked up and I was like, okay, yes, ma'am. I distinctly remember that. Now, after years of talking about self-care and healing, that moment stuck out to me that we all need reminders, because we will forget and we will burn ourselves to keep other people warm.
It's funny, as you are talking about your mom, it made me think of this concept that we introduced to parents. So when I have reached my tolerance, right, I'm done. Like you said, I'm checked out. I either become, and it doesn't just relate to parents, it goes in any relationship. I either become mean, I become weak, or I become gone, right? Like I'm only physically present, but mentally, like you said, I'm gone. It's too overwhelming. And the reason for it, so many of us don't realize, is that my body is trying to give me signals and cues, like you said, to take a day, to take a nap, to take, to get a phone call, to give ourselves permission to rest. And how you were saying, the notion that I have to put my own mask on first still is, in this day and age, after X number of conferences that you've done, X number of trainings, the thousands of people that you have trained, that's still your light bulb moment, because what gets reinforced and praised is that ability, to make sure, again, that everybody else is okay while I'm gasping for air. But look, I did this. I did this. And so just hearing you speak about that, really hope people are taking heed and applying it to themselves about, well, what do my mean, weak and gone moments look like? How do I begin to recognize them? Because so many of us hold on to these stories that are tied to traumas. And when I say stories, let me be very clear. So many of us hold on to identities that are tied to traumas, toxic relationships, unhealthy behaviors. And for many people, healing requires that I let some, if not all, of those behaviors, relationships, ideas go, which can be scary, because I've heard the phrase, the devil that I know is better than the devil that I don't know. Or, this is my stuff. At least this is me, right? This is how I am. And so many of us allow ourselves to get comfortable in our pain. And then that pain becomes our identity. And so how do you help somebody, or what do you say to someone who, that's just how I am, and I'm scared to even begin my healing process because I don't know what it's going to reveal about me. I don't know what it's going to reveal about this identity that I've created.
Do it scared. Let me look in the camera. Do it scared. Do it with your teeth chattering, your knees knocking, your stomach quivering, with tears running down your face, with you feeling like you don't know what the next step is going to look like. You don't know if you're going to really break through. You don't know if anybody else is going to care. It doesn't matter. Do it anyway. And I told Tara that, I said, I want to grab my journal. This is my real life journal, right? My husband got me this journal. I love it. So I write in this gratitude journal. I'm almost out of the pages. But a year ago, I actually wrote in this journal, and I pulled it up, Tara, because I was like, this is so ridiculously powerful to the conversation that we're having. And as I looked at it the night before, I actually went and did a mini live in my community, sharing with them about it. And this is what I wrote on September 3rd. Let me be proof. September 3rd, 2018. Okay.
Wow. A year ago to the day.
A year ago to the day. Check this out. Took the day to myself. Still had to fight for it. If I've realized nothing else, no one will give you a break. No one will put your needs in front. So you must do it for yourself.
Wow.
A year ago to the date. Then it says that I went and got a massage, my feet done and my nails done. What? And I actually acknowledged in my journal, I wrote that normally I would only get one service, let alone 3. And then I wrote, but I knew my me time. That I went home, grabbed this journal, and went out to a park to sit in the park, to sit by the water and write. And I wrote down that I went home, I kissed the baby because the baby was crying, grabbed the journal, and I left. But I knew my me time wasn't over and I needed more. Before, I would have taken not just time for one service, but I would have avoided going home in order to not get sucked into staying. And I would surely wouldn't have driven over 20 minutes away to sit in the park and to tell people no, that I am my number one priority and that I can be there. I can care for everyone else after. A year ago to the day.
Wow. Wow.
And I think that, go ahead.
No. To me, the thing that sticks out to me is, and I have to fight for, I have to put that boundary around it. I have to claim it. Mm-hmm.
And I know so those of y'all who are listening, pop into the comments. Don't leave us here by ourselves, right? Let us know that you're here with us, that you're hearing the conversation. Pop into the comments and let us know if this is a Me Too moment for you. That you realize that, and the reason, so I even questioned why. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Why did I feel like I had to fight for it?
Right.
A year ago, why did I feel that way? Why didn't I already establish that this is how we operate as a family? That I need my time and you need your time. So what can we put into place so that we each can take care of ourselves in a powerful new way? And in the journal, I actually wrote down why I didn't have it. I said, start calling BS. It don't say BS. On yourself and others, right? It's time for it all.
It is. And yes, and I'm going to encourage everybody to pop in too, because I want to hear what our struggles are, what our strengths are, because one of the things that, again, the feeling that I have to fight for, it makes me think about so many conversations that I have to have with people where I don't take a nap until I get a headache. I don't take a day off of work until I can't get out of bed, right? And so we tell these martyr stories as if they are a badge of honor, right? Like, oh, and I've said it before, like it becomes competition. Like, I haven't slept all week. Why I haven't slept all month? Why I haven't done this? Why I have, where
I got 3 children at home.
Exactly. As if it becomes a badge of honor, and the notion of taking a day, right? Like all that stuff's going to be there. Them kids going to be there. That relationship's going to be there. Financial issues are going to be there. It's going to be there anyway. And the thing about it that I always tell people is that you're going to give yourself that time. Now, it's either going to be by force or it's going to be by choice, right? And so when we talk about healing, to me, self-care is a part of healing, but healing is not necessarily a part of to me, it's not a part of self-care, because sometimes self-care for people, and I want to be honest about this, and this is where, if you're listening, I would love for you to join us in the comments, so we can include you in this conversation. So many of us have been taught then that self-care is involves me spending money that may on the tail end come back to bite me, and now I'm stressing about this, right? And so we've been taught, retail therapy, or I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna go here. And I want to talk about the notion. I posted this picture on Saturday that said affordable self-care, right? Like doing an inventory about what is really affordable for me, and that allows me to connect with self, right? Because when the reason why I put that healing on the inside and didn't call it self-care is because how many of us know people in our lives, or have been those people, where you look together, right? Hair done, nails, everything did. You fancy, cute, Drake, like all of that is done. But on the inside, no one wants to be around you. You don't even want to be around yourself. And when I introduce mindfulness to people, one of the biggest pushbacks that I get is that people don't know how to sit still with themselves, because I'm so used to going and going and going and going that taking 5 minutes to sit and do my breathing is too much. And so how do you help people, or how can people better understand that internal healing, like the work of healing, may or may not, and everyone's story is different, and I want to acknowledge and honor that, but it may or may not require any of those things. Like, how do you create your own healing that allows you to get in touch with self?
Yeah. One of the thing that happened that shifted me is when I realized I take myself as far as I could, is when all of my free self-promotiums had reached its limit. And so let me give you an example. These are things that I consider low cost or free. That works for Mothyna, and you have to find out what works for you. I love to color. I tell people this on a regular basis. You can buy a 25-cent coloring book. You don't gotta buy the $15 ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can literally buy a 25-cent coloring book. You can get your crayons and color pencils during this season, right? Back to school season. Hey, greatness. That you'll be able to really go ahead, color,
Mm-hmm.
draw, do whatever you need to. That's one of them. Walking for me. And I don't mean like the huff puff. Like if I walk to the end of the block and see something that I like and spend some time acknowledging it
Mm-hmm.
and walk back.
Wow.
That's self-care for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like for when I go to in whatever community where you reside, is there a lake, a reservoir, a river, something that you can kind of go to stand or sit and just watch the movement of the water and watch nature if that is soothing to you. About in 2017, at the end of the year, I usually take a week off, 2 weeks off around my birthday. Like to me, all work ends on December 14th. Okay. All work ends December 14th. And December 15th through the end of the year, but my birthday, my wedding anniversary, all that is in that season. So done. Okay. So I actually took off 2 weeks, and a friend of mine reached out to me to just check in on me. She's like, "Hey, Mothyna, what you doing?" I said, "I'm sitting on my couch getting bored."
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Wait a minute." And this is through text message. And so we ended up on the phone after this because she texted me back and said, "What? We getting bored? What's that about?"
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up having this really authentic conversation about when we're so busy being busy that we're in constant motion, but are we actually going anywhere?
Right.
And I said, I want to not watch TV because that's a form of checking out very often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, no, you're checking out. And most of us don't go to sleep. We pass out.
Right.
So you're not intentionally like, okay, I'm going to go to bed. No, you watch TV or you stay up or you're on your phone until next thing you know, you're waking up in the morning. That is not intentional care.
Mm-hmm.
So taking my journal, as you heard me say, grabbing my journal and going to sit somewhere and writing with no judgment, with nobody else needing to read what I'm saying, that I am literally just taking time to be present with my own thoughts and asking myself, well, what would feed your spirit? Now, I love a massage, a spa trip as much as the next person. I do. I ain't gonna lie. Feel free. Remember, December 15th, but I think it's all year round. So I get it, right? However, what are the things that when my budget says no, that I still can do that feeds my soul and feeds my spirit? Is it listening to my favorite songs? Is it laying out someplace where I feel safe and allowing that moment to transcend? Is it doing it with a bowl of grapes next to me and, munching on some grapes? What are those things? Because that becomes critical when you recognize, because when we are not in alignment with our own being, we become the walking dead. And we look good, been there, present, right? I raised my hand when you said it. We look good, but internally, like you said, we don't want to be around ourselves. We avoid the mirrors because we don't want to see.
I want to go to Christina's comment about, I often wonder when I will stop feeling guilty for taking me time. And I know you touched on that, even Mothyna, right? Creative director, visionary, international trainer. How do you work through that? How do you break through, again, the narrative and the reinforcement that plays on that, right? Like you have to earn it, right? Self-care or healing is not your birthright. You have to earn self-care. How do you get over that?
So I want to share this. I'm telling y'all the truth. Listen, some of the community they're on here, and so they caught this when I talked about it yesterday. But this is the thing that, and so to talk about how we then do this, because first you have to recognize that you're doing it. So kudos, Christina, for even recognizing, right, that I feel guilty. Like I didn't realize that mom guilt was as real as it is. Even when I reflect on my mother's, like, oh my gosh, she must have that. Until living not just with taking care of children, but being the sole provider for a child and being a mom. I didn't realize how powerful it was. So this is one of the things I actually wrote in the journal. What does zoned out look like, right? Because if you're zoned out, then you're the walking dead. So what does zoned out look like? It is unintentional, catch this, unintentional repeated action. and unwillingness to be fully present in each moment. And in a constant comparison of what was or what will be. Some people try and say, oh, I'm planning for the future. No, you're refusing to be present.
Right.
And then the last piece I'm going to mention in here is saying yes when you want to really say no, and only in taking action for what others can see. And you're unable to say or even recall what you spend the majority of your time doing. You're just getting by. So when you recognize that those things are happening, then being able to say, well, what happens if I say no? What happens if I own my no? What happens if I say, I would like for you to have a seat and not move? Whatever activity you want, whatever device you want, you got 20 minutes because I'm taking 20 minutes. And training your children early on to do that and to recognize that. So I use this example. I was running a meeting one day, and I had it wasn't even a big meeting. It was maybe 7 or 8 women sitting around the table. And one of my business partners started looking at me strange. She's like, and I'm looking at her like, well, what? She said, your lip is bleeding. And I went, and sure enough, I could taste blood. So I said, can you support me, please? And I got up, and they took, she took over. I got up and I went to the bathroom, and I could see just a little bit of blood on my lip. And what it told me is this, and this is what I want you to get about why your not just self-care, your self-love, your internal work is so critical, right? That I was so dehydrated and so exhausted that in the middle of a meeting, in the middle of a conversation, that I literally was bleeding. And what was happening was an external manifestation of an internal problem. And when we commit to being my best self allows other people to do that, means that I take care of the internal work so my external reflection could be so much better. And then everyone else benefits. When I'm hydrated and I don't want to fuss anybody out, and I don't have headaches, and I don't want to just pass out, I'm able to be more present with my loved ones. I'm able to say to my partner, how can I support you? Without it feeling like, oh, I'm just saying that because I feel like I have to, because we're in a relationship and I should care. No, you have a real joy, because guess what happens when you say that? You can also reflect back and say, what support looks like for me is. You can say to your children, I know you don't feel really good right now. Here's some of the things that I do when I don't feel all that great. What do you want? Do you want to talk about it? That's one of the things I love about you, Dr. Tar. Like, I'll be like, you better go ahead with a love note. Like, I'm putting that in my journal because I'm going to do that as soon as they can read. Right? So I love how you model that for us just from your own personal life. And it's just a snippet, right? But it gives us an idea of what that can look like. It gives me the freedom to be able to say unapologetically, I'm unavailable to support you with that right now. But this past year, one of the things I learned going through moments of intense stress, and it was like nothing had changed, but everything had changed, was when I learned how to say this sentence. And I have been saying it now for almost a year. I do not have the capacity to support you with that right now.
Wow.
End the sentence, end the conversation. I do not have the capacity to support you with that right now. And when you have authentic connections with people who value you being at your best, when their response is, which is what happened to me the first time I said that statement to one of my very best friends. And her response was, thank you. Thank you for that. Because she recognized in that moment, I love you and I care about you. But if I'm saying this to you, I am truly at my limit. There's nothing else I can say or offer you. And so that gives me a freedom to know I have steal away, that I have the freedom to be able to articulate that. And I didn't realize how much I was saying until a friend of mine said that back to me. She was like, girl, I said that to my mama the other day. I was like, go ahead then. But that it allows us this sense of freedom. And so what I say again, to all of that is to say that every time you do not take the time to really do your own work, your own healing, and to make it a non-negotiable priority, you kill a little piece of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that piece of yourself is no longer available to serve you, let alone anyone else.
And it seeps out, right? Like it seeps out into other relationships. And so one of the things that that I often see with that is what we withhold from ourselves, we withhold from others. And Mothyna, I hope you're still there. Your frame is freezing up a little bit. And so I'll just keep talking. But um, one of the things, just to everybody else, one of the things that often happens is that notion that if I can't, show up for myself, how am I going to show up for somebody else? Or if I can't be present for myself, how then am I going to be present for myself, for other people? Or if I feel guilty about my self-care when someone else in my life and that I have a relationship with is taking care of themselves, I'm going to either look at that from a sense of lack, I'm going to look at it from a competitive edge, I'm going to look at it from an edge that doesn't serve me. And hopefully Mothyna comes back when her computer shut down, everyone, just to give you all an update. But I'm going to keep this conversation going because it's so important and it's so good. And just like you said, Sequoia, you lose your being when you no longer know who you are. And so I'm going to bring Mothyna back on. And so when we understand that, what I withhold from myself, I withhold from other people. What I give to myself, I give to other people. Mothyna, you had it right. You're good.
Oh,
And so one of the things that, nope, take it back. There you go. Nope. Okay, there you go. There you go.
okay.
And so one of the things when you were talking that it made me think about is my children. So my son just started high school and he's at a new high school. He doesn't really know a lot of people. And I am really big on being honest about how you feel, right? So you can tell me however you feel because I never want to negate, minimize, overpower your feelings. And for me, one of the confirmations that I got from him was he sent me a text. He was sitting at the cafeteria table. He didn't know anyone. And he goes, "Mom, I'm nervous." Right? Like, what should I do? I'm nervous. And I was like, well, can you do any mindfulness? Yeah, I'm gonna try to do that. And it's really in us giving ourselves that permission. It's me telling him, Donald, I feel nervous when, or I felt scared when. That then creates the platform for others in our lives to be honest about where they are in their journey, right? So you saying, I don't have the capacity to support you. This gives me permission to then say to somebody in my life, you know what? I don't have the capacity to support you either. But and it becomes a circle of healing. It becomes a circle. I'm working on my stuff. I'm owning it. And the beautiful thing about healing that I love is that there are parts of ourselves that healing reveals to us that we had no idea ever exist, right? Like there are beautiful parts to ourselves that you had no idea that you haven't even met yet. Because I'm stuck on this. And I love what you said, do it scared, do it with your voice shaking, your feet, shaking, your legs shaking, your trembling, but do it because there are parts of yourself that you deserve to connect with. And to me, when you talk about, and going back to Christina's comment about that guilt and letting go of that, to me, it all starts with the mindset of worthiness and deservedness. And so, how do we get ourselves into that position of believing? Because sometimes the healing honestly comes, I stay here because I don't believe I deserve any better. And whether that's conscious or unconscious, I just feel like this is how it is. And so, how do we get to that point of challenging and changing that mindset so that we can allow ourselves to receive whatever this process brings fully?
The first thing I would recommend is that you you stay connected to conversations like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Stay connected to conversations and people like this. 2, create intentional check-ins with people in your life to say, do you see me? And it's not because their opinion matters most, but it's because ideally the people who you are surrounded by and that you surround yourself with love you enough to call you on your BS, to
Mm-hmm.
know when you're hiding, to call us forward and say, you can't hide from me. I see you.
Mm-hmm.
And you take that and you ask yourself, is this real? I'm telling you, this is literally what I've been going through. And literally what I did when I had two people closest to me saying to me, you have to decide. You have yet to decide what it is you want to do now. And one of my sister friends literally said this to me, and I have wrapped myself into it. So I'm going to say to everyone under the sound of our voices that this is what I want you to say to yourself. All right. And that is this. All right. That you that brought you to this space and time, the you that you have been for the last year, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. There's nothing wrong with you. But you may be now at a point in your development, as Tara just said, right? That you may be now at a point in your development that version of you no longer serves you. Love that version of you and release them. Release that version of yourself and accept that there are parts of you that if you don't do it scared, if you don't push forward, if you don't release what you're holding on to so tightly, even though there's greater being given to you right in this moment, you'll never discover those parts of yourself. And that we deserve, I feel like we have a divine responsibility to live well. And if you are not, that's where the check-in is required.
And I think to me too, you know, I think for me, my revelation came where I didn't have to start with the hardest thing, right? Like I didn't have to start with that issue from 30 years ago. I could start with what I did last week, right? I can start with how I communicated with my children yesterday that, you know what, let me check in with myself, right? What would make me say something like that? Or what would make me do something like that? So when we think about healing, okay, a lot of times people argue for their limitations, right? I can't do that because, I can't do that because, or that's because of this. And we literally set up entire platforms supporting why we can't do something. And, you know, my thing with the mindset, okay, and I don't, okay, you can't, fine. I'm not going to debate you on that because you usually have built up your argument so well, but there is some place you can start. Right? Can you start with drinking more water? Can you start with making sure you're hydrated? Can you start there? Right? And allow that momentum to then build into something else. Can you start with trying to go to bed earlier? Can you start with, you know, acknowledging how you feel in this moment? All of that to me is the work, is the affordable self-care. And one of the things that Christina said that I wanted you to touch on, what she said, you know, sometimes she avoids that part, that sitting quietly with myself part. I'm going to bring up her comment because staying busy and doing my nails and shopping allows me to do the surface self-care. It allows me to stay there. And to me, it creates a false sense of healing because I haven't dug a little bit deeper. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I said it's excavation.
Wow.
And if you will continue, we, not you, we will continue to surface dwellers. Yes. Put your hands up, okay? We will continue to be surface dwellers if we do not begin to excavate. And I say excavate because, you know, when you look at the word excavate and understand what it means, it talks about truly digging deep. Truly digging deep. Nothing lasts without deep roots.
Wow.
That if you think about the way you build a house, or a building, or, you know, trees, flowers, weeds. Let's look at a weed, for example.
Right.
The reason why the weed is so resilient is because they go down deep first.
Right. Wow.
Right. So that is the thing. You will continue. Let me fix my language. We will continue to get the result that we do not desire until we do the thing that needs to be done. I keep looking at the camera because I want y'all to get this.
Yes.
Until we excavate, until we dig deep, until we uncover what does that mean. And often the lack of wanting to do that, as Christina mentioned, is because we're scared of what we'll find. We're scared. We're scared of what we find. So I said on my Facebook post earlier today that you're a liar. And I was talking to myself, but I know I'm a reflection of some of my family who are listening to this conversation. That you're a liar. And the reason that I know that you're a liar and I'm being a liar is because the things I say I want to do, the things I say I'm going to do, I never do. I never take action on. And I'm willing to lie to myself. And I use this as an example that I had friends who, when they would go like overseas, for example, right? I had a really good friend from college. You remember her. You remember Malika? Anyway, so Malika went to go live in Hawaii. And when she was in Hawaii, of course, all of us was like, oh my gosh, you're in Hawaii. I'm coming to visit. Woo! I got a place to stay in Hawaii. And she's like, and she's the consummate hostess. I promise you. She's like, oh yes, I have your room ready. I have this ready. And so literally all I had to do in truth was hop a flight. Ask me if I've ever been to Hawaii.
Have you been to Hawaii?
Nope. Absolutely not. And that's an example. And we go, oh, that's not that big of a deal. And we make up reasons as to why that never happened, why you made those decisions not to go, right? And the reality becomes when you've made that type of behavior or language a habit, then I just need to say, don't say that you want to go. Don't say you're going to go. When you've made that a habit, you begin doing less when you desire somewhere within to do more. And those habits begin trickling into other areas of your life. It's like you said, can you start by drinking a little bit more water?
Right.
Can you start with how you had that conversation with your child yesterday? Shoot, can you start with the conversation you had with yourself yesterday? And how and what about that conversation actually served you? Like if we start there, and that's what I mean about being a liar. And the piece for me, because there's very little that I can talk about or do in life that isn't connected to spirituality for me, by whatever means that you connect that. And so I had to charge myself, if I'm lying to the person I look at every day in the mirror, to the body I touch every day, to the teeth I brush every day, how can I possibly be authentic and true to the divine creation?
Wow.
So that's where we start, by recognizing I may have been my worst enemy, but not today.
Right.
I may have, really challenged myself in ways that were underwhelming, even to myself, but I made it look good, but not today. That I've cried and I've cussed myself and I've cursed myself with my own words, but not today. Today, I choose different. Right now, in this moment, I'm not focused on tomorrow. I'm no longer focused on the past because that is now gone. But today, in this moment, I say yes to more. I say yes to bigger. And I say yes to the own excavation and finding the most amazing part of myself that I didn't even know existed.
And to Sequoia's point too, I can do it unashamed, right? I can do it without the guilt. I can do it. Yeah, I can do it without that. I can let that go. Yeah. And I think as we get ready to wrap up, but just listening to you talk about all of this, if you had, Mothyna, 3 takeaways for people listening and tuning in wherever they are, right? Healing is lifelong. One of the things that I always find out about myself is like, oh wait, I got something else to do. Okay, good. I thought I had got that got that new perspective on that. Now it's this. Okay, great. So this is a lifelong process, right? Like because I have the desire to always get better for me, right? I want to see how loving I can become. Carmela said, you model that behavior for your son. I'm like, that was the highlight of my day. Like, yes, he told he was nervous. Like he owned his feeling. He knew what that was. A Black boy. He knew he felt an emotion and he could own it, right? And wherever we are in that process, where it's I'm not ready, I don't believe in this, to I'm here and I don't know where to start, to I've done this and this and I'm in therapy, or I have a trusted friend, or I have a trusted accountability partner. How do we put it all together and continue to either begin or continue or stay motivated within our journey?
So my first one that goes into every one of those, no matter where you are, is to give yourself 1,001 second chances. And I say that because often we think that once we've made it to that space, like, oh, I've arrived. Psych. No. that we're going to have new spaces. You know, for so many of us and some of the people who are listening to this conversation, you know, you've achieved a lot of things. You know, maybe you've done some things like written a book and raised your children. Like maybe now they're grown, whatever it may be. And now you're figuring, okay, well, now what? Your purpose hasn't changed. The mode of delivery may. And it's okay. Right. So give yourself 1,000 second chances. The second thing I would say is check your squad often.
Okay.
Check your squad often. Who's around you? And it's not to say you have to go run around searching for that best friend, right? I'm not saying that at all. That, you know, in times of need, the people who have offered me something truly powerful and truly remarkable may have been a one chance encounter. That's fine. But the people we keep around us, check them often. You know, ask yourself, if this door to my life, that once it closed, the people who were in here had to stay in here, but I really want everybody in here? Ask yourself that. So, and the third thing I say that I would challenge us to do is, the way I want to phrase this, I want to say take more risk, but not in the way that I need to jump off a building type of risk.
Right.
You know, when I say take more risk, I mean take a chance to check in on your resilience. Take a chance to check in on your integrity. Take a chance to check in on the strength that you already have and remind yourself that you've been through and you'll continue to move through. And the last thing in risk that I want us to check in is check in on your kindness. How kind are you being to yourself? And in addition to how kind are you being to others? So that's what taking more risk means to me in this moment, that those are the areas that I want you to take risk in and to check in on yourself in.
I just want to repeat that. So the first is 1,001 second chances, right? And then if you need 1,002, give it to yourself. Right? You deserve that. You deserve that. And then that's why who are your people? Right? Who is holding you accountable for loving yourself and owning all of you and healing all of you? And then the third is taking risks as far as kindness to self first, then others, our own oxygen mask, and doing those things that allow us to stretch our capacity to love ourselves a little bit more and a little bit. I don't want to say width. I want to go depth, a little bit deeper, like you said, with the root, right? So width is fine, but we want to go depth. I want to love all of me, because depth gets into generations past, but I'm bringing on to me now, right? That's depth. And so thank you for that. So I want to spend a couple of minutes just shouting out what is to come the rest of this month. We just got, for those of you listening, we just got a snippet of the power and the genius. And I don't like, when I think of you, Mothyna, I think of that fact checker, right? Like, oh, you say this, but I'm going to fact check you. Well, what does that look like in real life, right? Like, you know, and so I want you to speak to us. If you don't know, Mothyna is co-founder. I'm one
of the co-founders, yeah.
Okay, co-founder of a wonderful, I don't want to say it's a movement, Heal a Woman to Heal a Nation movement, which embodies itself as a conference, and it's coming up on September the 13th. And so I'm going to give you the platform to take it away, tell people what they can get, what they can receive, what they can experience.
Thank you so much. And you're going to be joining us. So that's one thing they automatically are going to be able to get, is going to be a chance to connect with you and the piece that you're doing about, you know, putting on your own self-care seatbelt and going deeply into that and unpacking that. So this is our opportunity. I always say that in any great community, no matter where that community is, no matter if it's considered a rural community or a progressive community, no matter what, every community has a time of convening. It's the time where we check in with ourselves. It's the time where we see what we've done and see what's yet to be done. And we make a plan to make that happen. And that is this for us. So this is our 15th year celebration. I cannot believe I say that about anything. But this is our 15th year celebration. And so September the 13th, we kick off at 9 a.m. and we get a chance to do what I call doing the heart work. That if your heart isn't right, your head always suffers. And so how do we do the heart work to push ourselves forward? Whether you're growing a business, growing a family, growing you, that whether you're an executive or an entrepreneur, this is the conversation, because usually no matter where you are on that spectrum, it's always you. that if something is missing, there's something that you can do to make that shift. So I am beyond excited. This is our 15th year. It has a pajama party, you know, with a little hip hop, a little reggae, but no cameras allowed. This is for sisters only, and there are no cameras allowed. So that's Friday night. And then Saturday morning, our VIP sessions, of course, continue. We start at 9 a.m. We have Toxic Lover Healing as part of the conversation. Forgiveness is the Antidote with Dr. Sabrina and Jai, Tama Aziz. We have a host of conference sessions, breakout sessions that afternoon. And we're talking about being is the new doing. We're talking about what do you do about your finances and going beyond just securing the bag. You know, what does investing look like? And if you're not ready to invest, how do you take care of your personal finances so that you grow in every single area, including how you take care of your money in business as well. So we have an amazing panel of speakers who are going to be addressing that. And then we close out the weekend with our brunch. So we get a chance to talk about being not just visionaries, but taking a look and spending some time with what I like to call mamas, right? Because I don't call anybody, I call everybody seasoned. They're seasoned mamas. And they have been doing this work for a couple score. And they have deeply invested in what it looks like to bring up this. The conference is going to be in Baltimore, Maryland, to bring up the work to do this excavation deeply on yourself. And so we're going to kind of sit at their feet. They're going to have the morning session and they're going to dive deeply in with us. And then we're going to do some visionary planning. One of the things that I often charge is we know what it's like to go to a conference, if you've ever been there, to go to a conference, an event, a program, and you get fired up, you get energized, and you're like, whoa, are you a woman? Hear me roar. And then come Monday, you get back in your life with people who wasn't there with you, who don't know what a clapper moment is, who don't have any idea what you're talking about or why. How do you maintain that momentum? And how do you fire it up even more? And how do you bring them along with you versus having them pull and drain the energy out of you? And so we spent some time talking about that on Sunday at our brunch. So hwhn.org is where you get more information. And Tara, you have a special gift for the people in your community. Do you want to share that with them?
Yeah, so everyone, if you are interested in registering, I am going to put our code. We have a code to our Sage 19, SAGE 19. And so if you go to hwhn.org to register and send Sage 19, you will receive a discount to the conference. And again, like thinking about where you talk about your 3 takeaway points, to me, one of the takeaway points too is, am I investing in my healing, right? Like, am I willing to invest in something that is going to yield? In business, we talk about ROIs, return on investment. And so, you know, that's going to be a return. My return on this investment is what? Is me feeling better about myself. You know, our session that I'm going to do on Friday is about that self-focus. We're going to go deeper into this and unpack mindset, unpack beliefs, and get down to some truth. So hopefully you all will join me there and support Mothyna in this beautiful, beautiful endeavor.
Absolutely. And there's so many different ways that folks can kind of join us too. So you can't come to Friday or Saturday during the day. You can come to the brunch. Okay. You can't come on Sunday, but you can come on Saturday. Okay. And I always say that, Tara, the pieces that you just hit on are the biggest takeaways for me. When I look at the connections and the relationships made, and yes, it helps people in their business, and yes, it helps people create profitable partnerships. But I also know people have literally found best friends and people who are now in their weddings and godmothers to their children through connecting in this space. So that is what you're truly coming for. You're coming for the year or the moment, years from now or months from now or minutes from now, that you feel like you have no one else, and there's somebody who says, I'm here for you and I'm willing to breathe for you until you can breathe for yourself. That is what I see come out of this community over and over again.
Well, thank you, Mothyna. That is beautiful. And so again, I hope that, you know, those of you listening, I hope that you were able to take, and just from the comments, just acknowledging Rosalind's comments and Kylie's comment about just serving you. That's always, always our mission. So I want to thank you, Mothyna, for joining me this evening. I truly appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. Join me next Tuesday. I will have another guest on here. We'll be talking about custody, child custody for parents. As always, we've got Dr. Tara community. My motto is let's heal together. Let's heal together. Let's do this work together. Let's support each other. So thank you all so much. I will see you next week again. Mothyna, thank you.
Thank you.